All right, coming up today, we have musician Todd Kerns. He is best known for being the bass player with Slash's band, but he's actually started out as a singer in the Canadian band The Age of Electric, and he's played in Faster Pussycat for a while. He sings with Bruce Kulick, formerly of Kiss, and he's done some other cool projects. And today, he is here to discuss his latest thing, Heroes and Monsters. It's with guitarist Stef Burns and drummer Will Hunt. It's an amazing new album, and we're going to discuss that plus things that he's learned from working with Slash and Miles Kennedy, his Bill Murray story, and more. Stay right there. Cool. Welcome, Todd Kerns. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Slash. I'm a fan of you. This is amazing. So how you doing?
Thank you. I love the shirt.
Yeah.
Classic.
I got the other one too. It's like the Dickies one. Did you see these ones?
Ah, yeah, those are great. Yeah, those are great. Yeah.
It was really wrinkled, so I didn't want to wear it. And
But where are you?
I'm in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Ah, beautiful. Yes.
Yeah, I saw you on the last tour with Slash, and I feel like I've seen you a couple times. But was that the first tour that they let you sing a song?
No, I've been singing since the beginning, pretty much. All probably somewhere into 2010, they started kind of like. I think I started with like "We're All Gonna Die" or "Dr. Alibi" or one of those songs, and then suddenly there was some Guns N' Roses and this and that. Miles started to kind of enjoy the idea of like, hey, go ahead, you sing a couple songs. I'm gonna go have a smoke. Although he doesn't smoke, but
yeah, I was blown away when I heard you sing. I was like, wow,
oh, thank you.
He's gonna give Miles a run for his money a little bit. Like,
well, I don't know about that, but yeah, I appreciate that. No, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I sort of when I joined there, as a guy who sings, it's sort of your gig is playing bass, and then we started doing the recordings, and then it became like, Miles was just very good about like, well, just go sing that and go sing this. And Miles is, the guy who sings most of his own harmonies on things like Alter Bridge and all that kind of stuff. So for me, it was he was just really good to me that way. I mean, to the point that later on the later records, like World on Fire or Living the Dream, it became more like he would do his bits, and then he would just you got the background vocals. He wouldn't really worry too much about what I was singing. So it became kind of almost like, a lot of the show I'm sort of strapped to the mic because I'm, doing my thing.
Okay.
With him.
So how does that work? I guess it's a two-part question. Like with songwriting, so with Slash, you got Slash is in Guns N' Roses too. So does he need to bring those riffs to Guns N' Roses first, and then Axl goes, "No, you can keep those ones for your solo stuff"? And then how does that work also for you? Like, do you have to bring your good stuff to Slash first, and Slash goes, "No, you can keep that for your solo stuff"? Or is it all just a free for all and anybody can do what they want?
I think it's always a free for all. I think the big thing with Slash is it's like, what I've always giggled about is, the guy writes every single thing he just starts playing guitar, and he'll play a riff, and my joke is always like, well, I'll be watching a kid play that on YouTube next year. And he always kind of giggles, but it's kind of like, it's usually true. Every riff he plays is some sort of iconic, classic riff. You just can't help it. But like everything he comes up with turns into just an icon of a riff. So the stuff that I come up with generally, I don't even know where it would wedge in within his world, because he comes in with 1,000 guitar riffs that are like amazing. And then I don't know how it works in the Slash and Guns N' Roses world. I don't know what. I wish I had more to report. I don't know what they're doing with new music and whatnot, but I assume, like him, he like me, it's always very sort of project oriented. If you're working on a record, be it Conspirators, if that's what we're working on, then all of our energy goes into that at that moment. So, and everything, knowing that you're going to be working on a Conspirators record in 3 months from now, or in a year from now, or whatever, it's kind of like you're kind of like gearing towards that as it's happening. And I think that that's probably exactly the way he works as well. Although Slash is a very big compiler of riffs. I know he's always got like stuff kind of like, boiling.
Okay.
And then he comes in and I got this and I got that and I got this and I got that. Yeah.
So has he heard the Heroes and Monsters? Have you had feedback from him?
I haven't had a chance to send him anything yet. I think he definitely saw a couple of the videos, because he just sort of said, that's really cool or whatever. I just kind of catching it in social media for him, which is that sort of stuff is always sort of floating around. But he's been always been very supportive of that stuff. I always have done a lot of other things on the side, and he's always been very, very friendly and cool about that kind of stuff. He's got a lot on his plate, so
Yeah,
he's always doing a lot. So I
for
don't really
sure.
bombard him with all the stuff that I have going on.
Yeah. So with this project, I mean, I love that it's a trio, by the way. That's really cool. And that makes it,
Yeah.
does that make it easier for touring and stuff too, with like the prices, because I know it's expensive to tour. And I only need to pay 3 people instead of like 5 or 6.
Yeah, it makes you realize what genius's rush were, doesn't it? It's just kind of like, 3 flights, 3 hotel rooms, all that kind of stuff. It goes a long way. You're thinking like, man, that would be it'd be genius. And I started in a trio when I was a kid, and to kind of find myself doing it now, it's sort of an obvious thing as a guy who plays bass and who sings, that it's kind of like it would be an obvious place to kind of find myself. But yeah, it's really fun. I think that's kind of like you say, there is a business aspect involved in touring. It's actually the number one thing about touring is how are you going to make it work, and that's kind of where I'm at with everything that I do. So with this, it's kind of like, well, we can make that work. Of course, you're talking about 3 guys who are very busy as well, who are trying to like find a moment to go and play together. We finally found a second to go and play together in Italy for a few weeks, and that'll be fun.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. So Stef Burns, so he currently with Huey Lewis, or who's his current other band?
He plays with an artist from Italy named Vasco Rossi, who's like a
Okay.
massive artist. So he's been living in Milan a long time. So he's had quite an adventure and quite a cool life, being able to kind of have a whole other existence over there. He's from the Bay Area, but he's been in Italy for a long time. But he's played with a lot of cool people, as you've seen Alice Cooper and a bunch of people like
Yeah.
that. So but he's done a lot. Yeah, but he's mostly over there, and then he does his own thing, and now this, with me.
Yeah, I love his guitar work on this. It was funny because I was looking and it said he played on the Hey Stupid album. So I was like, that's like the era where they were on Wayne's World. I was like, I wonder if he was
Yeah.
and he was in Wayne's World. So that's a cool resume.
No, I
built
don't. I don't think he's actually in Wayne's
He's
World. Now that
not?
I think about it, no. But he played on the record, and then he eventually ended up touring with him. I think Slash plays on Hey Stupid as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow,
Funny,
small world. And then you
small
got
world.
Will Hunt, who's currently in Evanescence, but has played with everybody: Vince Neil, Tommy Lee, Slaughter, Black Label Society. I mean, this guy's an insane drum. How did you find? Did you just know these guys already, or how did you get these guys to be in your band?
Well, Will has been a friend for a long time. He plays in Evanescence now, and we he just reached out and sort of, hey man, I'm doing this thing. Would you be interested in knocking some stuff around? I mean, the biggest component was lockdown, being sort of not doing anything. Frankly, I just sort of hanging around. So when it became like, can you what do you think about knocking some ideas around? I was like, yeah, absolutely. I'm not doing anything. Literally, I'm not doing anything. So it became fun to just kind of like, put some ideas down, send it off. Again, it's like it's the lockdown and the 21st century that makes this thing possible, because we live in a day and age where you can send files around and make music together without it being sort of having to all get together in LA and make a record. It's just kind of like we did it completely remote.
Wow. So even the songwriting and everything, and the production, everything.
100%. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. It was all done. Like I'd never even met Stef Burns in person, although we'd spent intimate hours, working on songs and stuff. Basically, how you and I are talking right now.
Hmm.
And then we hadn't even met in person until we went to make videos for this record. Such a weird thing to say, but that's a very modern thing, I guess.
Yeah, it's cool. It's definitely like I wouldn't have the opportunity to interview all these great musicians if it weren't for the Zoom technology. I mean, I guess I could I was doing the phone calls before, and it was like, those are rough though. It's like, you can't see the person. It's kind of staticky. This is way better.
Totally.
Yeah.
I agree. Yeah. It's more of a personal thing too. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, what do you like? Because obviously you play with Slash, you play bass, and just where you just play bass. And then obviously now you're fronting this band. is there one that you prefer, or do you kind of like, because I know for me, like I interview musicians, but I also interview like authors, and the authors are really interesting because I'll get into these really deep things, and then it's like fun to like, okay, let's just talk about fun stuff like a, with a rock star. That's way more fun. Do you like both, or if you could only do one, would you just do just fronting the band?
I think that's been kind of the most satisfying thing in my career is the ability to kind of like, move into different areas and do different things. And it keeps your brain sharp. It keeps you fresh all the time. I mean, I am a singer. I've always been a singer. So I think that that's, one of the great joys is just doing it. So I think that I feel like in the Slash camp, it's pretty damn satisfying. I don't feel like unsatisfied doing that. But that said, I do really enjoy singing. So I think that, if I guess if you put a gun to my head, I guess singing songs and playing music for people is kind of what I love to do. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to doing, being in a band where I was singing and another guy was singing, like a Gene Simmons, Paul Stanley kind of thing, that kind of idea. But yeah, it's sort of that's a very good question because it's one of those things I really haven't. I think life has been moving too fast to really sit down and think about like, do I prefer this or do I prefer that? It's kind of like I just enjoy it all, so I just kind of roll with it.
That's awesome. Do you ever sing just singing and not playing the bass, or would it feel weird to sing without a bass or guitar on
No,
your...
I do. I actually like it. I was in a band back in the 90s late 80s into the 90s where I was just a singer. But and these days there's a show here in Las Vegas that I do with it's called Raiding the Rock Vault down at the Rio, and it's with guys from Whitesnake and Heart and a bunch of different bands, and I just sing in that show. It's like they just I get to go down there and sing some cool classic rock covers, and it's fun. It's like I say, it's like I don't really think about it in a funny way. Like it is, like I'm accustomed to having a guitar in my hands or a bass in my hands. But just getting up and singing is kind of like, it's fun. I don't really think too much about like what I'm not doing. It's more a case of just kind of like, just don't screw these lyrics up or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I love the new album. Again, it's Heroes and Monsters. Right now, and it's one of those things where this is like one of those albums where you like every song. And right now, the first three songs are probably my favorite. But if you ask me in a month, it could change. Now, what was the decision to go with a full album versus just a few singles or EPs? Because it seems like now everyone's just like putting out a song a month instead of like, all right, we're going to put out a full album.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I do a project called Toque with Brent Fitz from Slash's band, a Canadian thing that we do, and we do put out singles. And it's sort of a different conversation about like, well, do we compile them together? Do we release it as a record? I think that the three of us and with Frontiers are very much sort of like, let's compile together a record. I mean, it might be becoming an antiquated idea to have 10, 12 songs in one package, artwork, the whole thing. Maybe that's becoming a thing of the past. I don't know. But I think as long as it's still a thing, I think it's something I'd like to lean into for as long as possible. Someday when it's sort of like, that's not a thing anymore. You put out Hound Dog on a 45 and then a B-side. It's basically back to the 50s now, isn't it? Putting out singles. But I think we just decided to kind of collectively make it a record, I mean, and within that sort of the decision to try and do a proper journey of it, as far as like it's not 10 versions of the same song. It's sort of some ups and downs and some give and go and some bobbing and weaving. And I think that's part of the fun of making a collection of songs. It should be sort of up and down.
Yeah. It's cool. Another song I really liked was the cover that you guys did of Sweet Set Me Free. The drumming on that is fucking insane. I was like, is he doing some sort of studio trick? Is there like 6 drummers on this? Because it doesn't sound like one man drumming. But what made you decide to cover that? Because I know Vince Neil covered that, which Will was in Vince Neil's band. True. I don't think they probably played it live, but
I don't think he played on that recording either. But
no, he didn't play on the recording. No, but
we knocked
Vicky Fox's ass, probably. No offense to Vicky, but
well, Vic plays in like, what does he play with, like Miley Cyrus or something like that? It's something.
Does he really?
Interesting. Yeah, he's in something very interesting that I might be wrong on that, but
I thought he was playing with Pretty Boy Floyd. The last I heard,
could be. I mean, but he was doing something kind of like bizarrely like mainstream there for a while.
That's cool.
But But anyway, yeah, no, we knocked around a bunch of ideas and kept coming back to that song. And it was just kind of like, let's just lean into it. Again, I knew it would be a massive showcase for Will because he's just one of those guys that can play anything, really. He's just a monster drummer. And then and it's one of those songs that has elements of everything that I like, big vocals, all that stuff that's just sort of all the things that I really love about rock and roll. So it just sort of came together. It felt like it kind of fit into the record pretty well too. So um that's Sweet's one of those bands that you could just randomly cover any of their songs and you'd find a good one to cover.
No, that's amazing. Yeah, no, tell me about the song "Let's Ride It" because I think that's one of my favorite songs. It's so it's weird. It's unique, but it's like familiar at the same time. I'm hearing like 70s influences. Like, I don't know, I almost hear like a little bit of Clash, Cheap Trick, Queen, Beatles, but it's got the heavier guitar. It's got a killer solo. It's got the harmony vocals. Like, I just love this song. Tell me how you got inspired to make that song.
That's funny because I think all those references you just mentioned are kind of like all in there. And I think that's kind of what I love about it too, is that sort of, like sort of the popisms are in there, the big sing-along chorus, all that kind of stuff make it
Yeah.
really fun. And there's this sort of stacked sweet harmonies that happen, or Queen a little bit. That kind of stuff is sort of very much, natural. When you get three guys together, there's a sort of communal idea of the music that you like, but then each guy has his own thing that he's also into. So everybody kind of brings their own sort of their own dish to the potluck, as it were, and I think that sort of comes out in many occasions, like something like "Let's Ride It." And I think "Let's Ride It" really is really a strong example of what I like and what I think that people know me for. I think people would go like, "Oh yeah, okay, that sounds like something." Even though I think the giant the lion's share of the idea came from Stef to some degree, but it just kind of has like a lot of the right elements to it, and I think that's a lot of the references you brought up. You nailed it. I was like, wow, there it all is.
Is that a lot of the album? Because I'm kind of hearing some of that. It almost has a little bit of that kind of Guns N' Roses, Sunset Strip, kind of like LA Guns, kind of sleazy rock that I love personally. Are you influenced by that, or is it more that you guys just have the same influences? You're all influenced by the 70s punk and rock and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I think truly like that's just natural. I mean, I think that all that stuff that you're talking about is just sort
Mhm.
of there. I think that's sort of that's an interesting thing about influences is it's kind of like when people say like, what are your influences? Yeah, I think it's hard to even say because sometimes you just pick up a guitar and you start playing something and someone will say, it kind of sounds like this or it kind of sounds like that. And you kind of go, yeah, I guess it does, because that's sort of just all in there. All this sort of DNA that you've sort of taken on is all sort of built into you. And I think all that stuff that, when it comes to Guns, I mean, that's just a very natural, it's always going to be there no matter what I do. So yeah, I think it is a component of like all the same influences, but of course those guys are influences as well. You know.
Yeah. So how do you stand out as a musician? Because I feel like this album is unique. I mean, it has some of those similar sounds, but then you've also got like some songs with heavier guitars. And then the last song, And You'll Remain, I thought that kind of reminded me of like a Led Zeppelin kind of Battle of Evermore kind of vibe.
Yeah.
I mean, do you try to be eclectic, or how do you try to stand out as a musician? It's just so hard with such a flooded market right now.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of thing you can't really think about it. I really don't worry too much about like what's happening or what's not happening. I'm sort of more the guy that's, you know, we live in a day and age where people are making less and less original music. Like all my heroes stopped making music. There's not a lot of new music coming from the Kiss or Aerosmith or any of the bands that I loved as a kid. So I'm always kind of like, I'm going to keep making music until I can't anymore, basically. So that's going to be a long time. But that said, it's sort of one of those things where trying to stand out is difficult because I think that, like you say, there's you put up a music video on YouTube and 2 weeks later it's forgotten about. Maybe sometimes 2 hours later. It's just the nature of the way things are. So I think you just kind of have to kind of do what you do, and which is one of the things that I appreciate about bands like Guns N' Roses is that there never seemed to be any sort of pressure for them to kind of like change to match what was going on. I think they just did what they did, and that worked. I think you can easily sort of get swamped into trying to do something silly like painting myself purple to try and like be noticed or whatever. It's kind of like, what, we just got to do what we do and make music and hope that that people kind of get a chance to hear it. And in this day and age, it's the music business is crazier and crazier every year. So it's kind of like, if you get a chance to put out music, I say jump on it.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Well, I think also a part of it is like your work ethic. I mean, you're doing so many different projects. But one of the things that I read an interview with you talking about how you learned kind of from Slash, that just the drive, like how he still has this drive to move forward and make great music, even though he doesn't have to. I thought that was really interesting. I was like, yeah, that's a good point. He could just quit and be like, hey, I done it all. Like, but he just keeps going. So you feel that same kind of drive to continue to keep making great music and continue playing because you love it, I'm sure, is part of it.
Well, that's the biggest part of it. Yeah, is that you just love it. I can't imagine like tomorrow if somebody said, okay, well, you're done. I mean, I'd be like, okay, well, like if they said, everything that you're doing right now is all stopping. You're done. All those things are done. It would just be like, then tomorrow I would just start something new. It's just kind of like I would just find something else to do. And I think that there is something to be said about guys like Slash who, even before the solo album or even before the Conspirators got together, it was sort of like he very well could have just, he'd accomplished it all. I mean, but he is constantly trying to better himself as a player, which is really inspiring because he doesn't have to. He has achieved, some of the most iconic guitar solos when he was 23. I don't know, however old he was. I don't know, but he's a better guitar player today than he was then, just as far as like his dexterity and just his ability to stretch out into different areas. I find that stuff very, very inspiring. And I think in a lot of ways, I think it kind of like jived with my own sort of take on things where I just kind of felt like there's 52 weeks in the year and I want to fill that time. I'm the kind of guy that I live to work, not, work to holiday and vacation kind of thing. It's sort of like my life is a vacation in a way. You know what I mean? Like it's, and that's not to say that it's just always a 24-hour party. It's hard. It can be grueling and it can be really difficult trying to work all these things into a calendar is can be challenging. But if you would have told my 14-year-old self that this would be my future, I'd have been like, bring it on. I mean, it's like, sounds like heaven to me.
So when you say like Slash is doing, he's a better player, that was interesting. So he's practicing. Is there a lot of, as a musician, is there a lot of, what, I don't know what you say, like monotonous things? Does Slash do a lot of like, is he doing finger exercises or what, how is he making himself a better player other than is just playing his guitar and practicing more? Or is he practicing specific scales and things or?
I think it's a bit of everything. I think he's sort of one of those guys that always has a guitar in his hands. I'm not sure what he's doing right at this moment, but he's probably got a guitar in his hands. But it's weird because guys like Miles Kennedy, Miles is actually a jazz guy. Like he came up through jazz, and he's a very skilled guitar player. And once in a while, he'll be like, I'll see the two of them kind of commiserating over some sort of like weird scale that Slash is not, or just something Slash has come across. And I mean, things like Anastasia, that riff that off the beginning of Anastasia, is something that Slash came up with. It's something that he never would have done in the 80s and 90s, but it's just sort of something he kind of came across. And it's, he used to do a guitar solo during the 2010-2011 tour. And in his solo, he started doing that. And we were all like, what is that? That's really cool. And then he was like, then that turned into a song. It's kind of, so he's always growing. I think that's the one thing about him is he's always moving forward. And I think that's important. I think as human beings and as musicians, I think it's important to just keep, there's always something to be said about the peacefulness of just kind of being comfortable with who you are and what you do. And I think that's a big part of all of us as well. But I think for myself, I can only speak for myself in that, I just kind of enjoy these new challenges that come at me and I kind of lean into them and let's do this.
Yeah, I fucking love it. I know you got to get going here. I do have one more question. So I was actually trying to find out the story of how you got hired by Slash, and I found that story as I was looking for something else. So people can Google that. It's a Eddie Trunk. It's a cool story. But this is the story I was actually, then I started looking for this one, is the story with you and Bill Murray. Because I know that you listed Bill Murray, you shared a stage with him. And I was like, I'm Googling Todd Kerns, Bill Murray. I'm like, I can't find, what is the story with this?
We did a charity here in town for a guy named Kerry Simon, who was an amazing chef. He has since passed away, unfortunately. Had a terrible form of MS or something. But we had a charity here with Slash, Sammy Hagar, Alice Cooper, Kip Winger, Todd Rundgren. Geez, it was just the list went. The list went on and on. It was a lot of them are escaping me. But I was just playing in the band. I was like, I was playing bass, and Matt Sorum was there. Billy Duffy from the Cult was there, and we just kind of played. And then out of nowhere, somebody goes to me, Bill Murray might show up, and I go, what? I go, yeah, Bill was roommates with Kerry back in Chicago in the 70s or something. I go, really? I go, wow, that's so weird. He goes, and somebody asked us, like, do you guys know Brandy? Brandy, you're a fine girl. What? He goes, sometimes Bill likes to sing that song. So I go, okay. So I sit down and I learn it. Anyway, long story short, not only did Bill show up, he ended up hosting the entire night. Like, he kind of like took over the night. Like, he kind of came on stage. It was the weirdest thing, because I was standing side stage watching whoever was just kind of opening the show. And then sure enough, Bill Murray walks in, and he's standing in front of me, and then he kind of turns around, looks at me, and he shakes my hand, and I go, are you singing tonight? He goes, I'm warming up. But he never did sing, but he ended up kind of hosting the entire night. He just kind of like, he grabbed the mic, and he would just like, next up, ladies and gentlemen, Alice Cooper, whatever. And it was amazing. He was just kind of like, and then he just vanished into the night.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, that's cool.
Such a bizarre thing. Such a bizarre thing. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I know you got to get going. I always end with a charity. Is there another charity that you want to promote here at the end? Something that's near and dear to your heart?
Well, it's funny. I just started I was born in a small town in Saskatchewan, Canada, a town called Estevan, and we just started a charity up there for cats. My wife and I both have gotten very involved with, we took in 3 strays here, and not all at once. They kind of have been filtering in. And there's a whole stray cat community here in Las Vegas that I was largely ignorant of. But as time's gone by, I've become more and more involved in sort of, getting them neutered, trying to find them homes and that kind of stuff. And then this thing came up with this, my place that I was born in Canada, and we started a charity up there, and trying to get it's an existing charity up there, or place up there, but we're trying to get money raised for them to get a bunch of different facilities and stuff for them. So if you can Google that or come on my social media, you'll find all that for sure.
Okay, I'll put that in the show notes along with your website and all. And the Heroes and Monsters is 3 songs are out now, and then the rest will come out. I can't remember the exact date. It's coming soon.
The album comes on the 20th, January 20th.
Okay, so then, I got to listen to it already, so that's all I care about.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's great. Awesome. I loved it. Good stuff. Thanks. I'll let you get to your next interview. Thanks so much, Todd.
Thanks so much, brother. Take care. Right. Happy
Bye-bye.
2023.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye. All right, my thanks again, Todd Kerns. Thanks to his publicist for helping set that up. You can check out some of the new songs out right now on streaming, and the full album comes out soon, or it may already be out depending on when you're listening to this. Make sure to support Todd by buying the new album, buying other merch, or buying a ticket to go see a live show. At the very least, you can stream his music and follow, like, comment, and share his stuff on social media. And of course, if you want to support this podcast, it's all about the social media and YouTube right now. Nothing else, everything else is free. So just interacting on YouTube and social media on those avenues will help me out a lot. I appreciate all your support. Have a great rest of your day, and shoot for the moon.